I used to like to create shitty blog posts and just write for people to read, and that driving force of having people read it was really rewarding for me. I thought that was kind of neat that I could write something and I could think about it, and now I don't, because I don't believe that people want to see text that could be AI generated. And how do I distinguish my writing from AI generated text? I could write really well, but it sort of drains the energy out of writing for me. And that makes me sad. AI and the human voice. Sometimes I do workshops with teams about writing and workshop in the open. Those workshops often include a bit of writing, bad first drafts, and how it's good to knock out lots of drafts frequently. They help you think, and they help teams work out what they want to share and how. This is one of my greatest sort of sadnesses when it comes to AI, is I'm writing less. It's not only that I'm using generative AI to produce a lot of text, it's that I don't produce texts like I used to. I used to like to create shitty blog posts and just write for people to read, and that driving force of having people read it was really rewarding for me. I thought that was kind of neat that I could write something and I could think about it, and now I don't, because I don't believe that people want to see text that could be AI generated. And how do I distinguish my writing from AI generated text? I could write really well, but it sort of drains the energy out of writing for me. And I'm that makes me sad. I'm not happy about that, because they do help you think. Writing is really good for the sort of brain. The process of writing is thinking, and I should really get into the habit of doing that more again, because it's really lovely. Um, why should we follow your advice? But of course, drafting things is something that AI tools are supposed to be good at. Here's something someone said to me in a recent workshop. Why should we follow your advice when we're consistently being told by senior management to make more use of AI? Writing first draft is exactly the sort of task I'd ask Copilot to do. So yes, fair point. Here's my response to that. First of all, I'll come clean about where I stand, generally speaking. I am an AI skeptic, especially on using AI for writing. I can see it being useful for other things, but that's because I'm a writer, right? And yeah, I think that is true. Generally, you don't want AI to take away your thing that you're doing. I see AI generated text most of the time, and I think it's rubbish. It's dull, it's derivative, it always sounds like 1,000 other things I've read before, because the AI has been trained on those thousands of things, all now easy to find on the internet. But do I think AI is quite good at making simple software or basic web tools? Well, yeah, I tried it for that and thought, yeah, this isn't too shabby. Yeah, but when you speak to a developer, most of the time what they're going to say, or at least people that I trust to be good developers, is that it is actually pretty shabby. It's weird code and just strange. And of course, I would think that, wouldn't I? I don't know better. I'm not a software engineer. I have a feeling that everyone likes using AI tools to try doing something when else is professional. Okay, so I'm just echoing what the person here is writing. Chilist. I have a feeling that everyone likes using AI tools to try doing someone else's profession. They are much less keen when someone else uses it for their profession. I fall into the same trap as everyone else. I recognize and admit to my own bias. So bias in hand, allow me to plow through with some opinions. AI thinks good writing is full of clichés. I think AI is a terrible writer. Lots of people disagree with me, especially people who aren't professional writers. So let me try and prove my point. I am not a professional writer. I do think AI is a really bad writer. I can be fooled by someone that is good at prompting, and I know that people that are really good at reading that would be writers, don't get fooled as easily. But I think you can do a lot of stuff, but it's very hard to get all of the way. Have a look at tropes.md. It's a markdown config file that you can use to instruct your AI tool to avoid doing certain things when it drafts text for you. It has a lot of advice for AI bots, like don't use rich tapestry or complex landscape or pivotal moment or is it worth nothing? It's worth nothing, or this is my own favorite, laser focus. Don't use XYZ, serves as ABC, or it's not X, it's Y, etc. Look carefully at the tropes, at what tropes.md is telling AI to avoid. There's a simple way of summing up its advice. Clichés. It's a list of clichés, and tropes.md is just formalizing the advice. Avoid clichés. This is an age-old advice that has been around for almost as long as writing. Yeah, I mean, if you read a book about writing guidelines, clichés is something that is to be avoided. I find that hard being a foreigner because I tend to think that like the clichés go into the language so like intimately that for me that haven't grown up with it, it becomes the language and it is the words that you use for something. In Swedish, I'm much better at not using clichés, but in English, it's very hard. It's hard for non-professional writers to spot because clichés feel normal. After all, we use them verbally every day. It's raining cats and dogs. It seems very old. I don't know that we use that every day. Let's take this offline. Let's think outside the box. Yeah. This is why AI writing makes me roll my eyes. If a junior writer sent me a draft with that many clichés in it, I would ask them to write it again without them. It's the clichés that make AI text sound so derivative. I mean, it's also the M dashes. I think it's interesting. This writer is not using M dashes. They're using just dashes, and it looks much better. I don't know if this person would use M dashes before. It's funny. I just learned how to use M dashes right before sort of the advent of generative AI, and then I have to de-learn using M dashes because you can't use M dashes when you write something. It just doesn't look good. It's super weird. So yeah, I wanted to use it and now I can't. Here's another thing that professional writers would tell you. Not all cliches are bad all the time. Sometimes it's good to use a cliche. Sometimes it helps you make a point or express something with more clarity. Human writers learn how and when to add cliches. They know how to dial the clichéness up and down responsibly. Human writers have or can learn how to use language with subtlety. AI writing tools can't do that. And yeah, this is one of the weaknesses with AI tools. It doesn't sort of dial things in the correct way. And when it's funny, when I have written something using AI and I start trying to dial that knob of like how it feels, it's very, very tricky to do that well. It's almost always easier to just take what it has written and rewrite it if you have a very specific like tone or feeling that you want to convey. So yeah, it's hard. When I'm doing my workshop with teams, the main advice I give for anyone wanting to make their text more approachable, wanting to actually use the human voice, is to add tiny sprinklings of poetry. They're so tiny people won't notice them. That's the point. They don't dominate, but they are additive. They add something to the whole. They're flourishes that we automatically add when we're talking, but few of us remember to mix in to our writing. Oh, but few of us remember to mix into our writing. I'd argue they humanize text that would otherwise be dry as a stick. A little alliteration, a gentle pun, a joke, a witty subheading, a subtle callback to a point made earlier, perhaps by reusing the same words but in a different order, a playful bit of punctuation, deliberately bad sentences, repetition. Adding just tiny sprinkles of some of these to a piece of text will make it sound more like speech, be easier to read, and be more memorable afterwards. And this kind of is interesting because I have this theory that people are going to start adding spelling mistakes to generative AI text just in order to make people read it, because I think many people find that if they're sent something generated by AI, it's kind of hard to put the effort in to read it, because you know that the person sending it hasn't put in the effort to write it. So why should I read it? But if you put some problem into the text, will that make you sort of look into it more thoroughly? I'm not sure. But I had a conversation with a friend where we agreed that that is probably going to be one effect of people using LLMs to write, because it doesn't do spelling errors. So if you add that to it, it would humanize the text. It's a very blunt way of doing what the author is saying here. I wouldn't recommend it. It's much better to train to become a poet, as they say. But it is interesting. Thing is, you can ask an LLM to write a poem about anything, and it'll do it. Any style you like, any subject matter. But in most work-related circumstances, we don't want poems. The tiny sparklings of poetry are helpful, but no one's looking for a corporate strategy plan in rhyming couplets. AI can't do subtle, playful flourishes in text because it has no sense of subtlety. AI goes all in. Either it writes you a poem or it doesn't. And I mean, it's trained on predominantly like Reddit, which is decidedly not poetry. So it's not so strange that it can't shift between these two things, because it either writes as Reddit does or it writes as this person does, but it doesn't have nearly as much training to sound like this. So yeah, it's going to sound like Reddit most of the time. It cannot figure out how to be subtly poetic in tiny doses where appropriate. It doesn't know what appropriate is, and it doesn't know anything, so that checks out. But you do. You know it when you read it. It makes you smile or raise an eyebrow or make a note or pass it on to a friend. Human writing needs human input. Okay, sure, if you want to, or if your boss is insisting on it, go ahead and use AI tools to write something for you. Perhaps feed Tropes MD into it and see if it helps. Maybe it will. But think about your goal. You want humans to read the text. To get people to pay attention to it, take it in, to remember what it says, you're going to have to study your AI's first draft with a particularly careful eye. Apply your sense of the poetic. Add some tiny sparkles where they make sense. Do the work to make it sound human by adding a few of the flourishes you'd add without thinking if you were speaking to your audience directly. Get a body check from a human colleague, not from another AI. Steer the words towards humanity by steering them towards humans. And maybe. I also think that another approach is to always do the first draft on your own. And the reason for that is, in this case, you're losing the flourishes. You're missing the things that make you want to read the text, sure, but at least you have done the thinking if you do the first draft.